Hello, everyone. Welcome to Televate Tech Talk. I'm Rick Burke, a partner with Televate, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Dom Arcuri. Today, we're going to talk about a proven process that public safety agencies can employ to define their land mobile radio, LMR, network coverage requirements, along with best practices to verify LMR coverage. Hello, Dom. Thank you for sharing your insights on this important public safety radio communication topic.
Thanks, Rick, and hello, everyone.
So, Dom, to get us started, how do public safety agencies generally determine their land mobile radio coverage requirements?
As you know, Rick, it's very important for public safety agencies to thoroughly define their coverage requirements when they're looking to upgrade or replace their emergency communication system. What we normally see is municipalities generally want a minimum of 95% reliable coverage across their entire service area, which may be a city border or a county boundary, for example. And they want that coverage to give them a defined voice quality. Now, voice quality is defined for us by a term known as delivered audio quality, or DAQ. DAQ is shown in the figure we see here, and public safety agencies, we normally look for at least a delivered audio quality of 3.4. As you see, that definition is speech understandable with repetition only rarely needed, just with some noise and distortion.
What other types of coverage requirements need to be defined by public safety?
It is very important to define exactly what the 95% means. So if we want 95% of a given area, for example, there are different levels of coverage depending on the type of communication equipment needed. For example, there may be 95% mobile coverage as one level of coverage. In this figure, you'll see various levels of coverage shown in different colors. The red is the broadest coverage, and that represents potential coverage from for a mobile radio. So that would be to and from a mobile radio, a radio within a vehicle, certainly. And the narrower coverage occurs when we are trying to define coverage to a portable radio. A portable radio, of course, is normally worn on the hip, and it's more difficult to provide coverage to portable because the antenna is lower to the ground, and also the portable has less power than the mobile. In the figure, the yellow level of coverage shows coverage to and from a portable radio when it's worn on the hip and outdoors, or in the street, as we sometimes say. Even more difficult coverage comes when a user takes that portable radio indoors or inside a building. As you might guess, when you go inside a building, the structure of the building attenuates the signal, reduces the level of the signal, and makes it more difficult to provide coverage to the radio in that case. In the figure, we show two levels of green showing in-building coverage. The light green shows coverage inside a lightly constructed building, for example, a residential home or wood frame structure, and the darker green shows coverage to a more substantial building, maybe one of masonry or concrete. So it's very important to define the different levels of coverage as well as the area of coverage, Rick.
So Dom, the density of building coverage is certainly going to require additional radio sites, and in-building coverage is extremely important. And let's cover building coverage in a future session, if you would. But for now, though, how do LMR system designers ensure reliable coverage?
Well, for a public safety system, as we know, it's very important to have highly reliable coverage. in addition to the amount of area within the surface area that we want to cover, we also want extremely reliable coverage. And you may hear coverage referred to as 95-95 in some cases. That means 95% of the area at a reliability of at least 95%. That's addressed when the system is designed. So a system designer would estimate the signal level required to provide the adequate coverage, and then would add a signal level margin on top of that to provide for the higher reliability. And we would generally require a minimum of 95% reliability throughout the service area, as well as the 95% area of coverage. Once the system is designed, we would overlay a grid pattern on top of the service area, such as the figure you see here, which shows a certain number of test tiles that would be used when we do the testing.
With the design now in place, Dom, can you share with our audience how Televate recommends verifying land mobile radio coverage?
Yes, certainly. We recommend what's referred to as service area reliability, which is a term that's defined within TSB 88, which is an important document published by the Telecommunications Industry Association. When the system is tested, we overlay the desired service area, for example, county border, with the grid pattern, as I mentioned, and we divide that grid pattern up into certain number of tiles. You'll see a number of tiles in this figure here, and it's shown where many of them have been tested and it passed, shown as green. And there are some gray tiles which are, in this case, inaccessible for testing. But the number of tiles is very important. We want to develop a statistically significant number of tiles to ensure that our measurement has a high level of confidence. In this case, we want a confidence level of 99%, sorry, to confirm that the service area that we test is in fact covered to the required level.
Dom, coverage is so critical, and verifying that it's accurate is essential, both for contractual commitments for vendors and for end users. What other considerations should we be aware of when conducting coverage testing?
Well, you're exactly right. And I mentioned just previously that some of the tiles in our coverage area or service area may actually be inaccessible. So we have to take that into account when testing, but it is important to test all accessible tiles within the defined service area. And if there are some that are inaccessible, for example, rough terrain or a swampy area, those would just not be included in the calculation. We have to beware of what some vendors may refer to as covered area reliability, because that won't really confirm the 95% service area that we would like to see. And what we prefer, the service area reliability, in that case, all accessible tiles are tested, and that's very key. When vendors refer to covered area reliability, that only tests those tiles that are predicted to meet the coverage criteria, and that can be somewhat less than the required 95% covered area.
Dom, you've covered a lot of valuable information for public safety regarding network LMR network coverage and testing. Can you take a few minutes to summarize, our conversation so that we leave our viewers with, a summation of what we've covered today?
Yes, absolutely. Well, a lot of people like to say that coverage is king, and certainly with public safety emergency radio systems, that is true. Coverage is extremely important. So it's critical that we take great care in determining exactly what the coverage needs are within the public safety agency's service area, And then we have to carefully define the testing procedure to make sure we can ensure that our service area is tested and confirm that it meets the requirements.
Dom, very valuable and informative information. Thank you for taking time to share this insight. And to our audience, thank you for attending. Please share your thoughts and reactions and provide us any recommendations you have for future sessions that we can cover for you. And please also subscribe to Televate's YouTube channel to review previous Televate Tech Talk sessions and to show up for future ones. Thank you again, Dom, and thank you to our audience.
Thank you.